Thank you for joining us for another episode of Hello APGD, a neighborhood podcast about the Audubon Park Garden District in Orlando, Florida. I'm your host, Michael Lothrop, and my guest today is Nick Sambrato, Audubon Park resident, COO of the Memoir Agency, former owner of Mama's Sauce, and the baker-founder of Neighbor Bread. Be sure to subscribe to Nick's newsletter at neighborbreadorlando.com for bake schedule and updates on placing orders. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, or if you'd like to be a sponsor, please feel free to message me on Instagram at HelloAPGDPod. Thank you for listening. Support for this episode comes from Red Panda Noodle. Made fresh daily, these wheat-based Chinese-style noodles are pulled, sliced, and boiled to order. Find your favorite dish by following them on Facebook and Instagram at Red Panda Noodle. Plus, check out their website, redpandanoodle.com, for the latest on food truck pop-up dates and other news. And with me today is Nick Sambrato, Audubon Park resident, COO of the Memoir Agency, founder and former owner of Mama's Sauce, and the baker-founder of Neighbor Bread. Nick, welcome.
Hey, nice to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, man. Thank you for getting in touch. You listened to Tim Livero's episode.
That's right.
Talking about
Former
Coro.
roommate.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
So a lot of history there.
A lot of history there. I lived in that man's garage, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah. So Tim Livero, episode that just came out, I guess, recently. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is his restaurant right behind your home?
It basically is catty corner, yeah, in the old Bikes, Beans, Bordeaux space.
Yeah, super cool. Yeah. When Mama's Sauce, which was a company I founded here in Orlando in 2007, that did like handmade printing and really neat things with old machines. When that was coming up and in its harder years, I did a lot of couch surfing. And when he lived, I would follow the shop around as it moved, mostly because I didn't have a car. And so I'd be as close as I could to it. And he happened to move right where the shop was, along with his cousin. And I rented their garage.
Nice.
So I lived in their garage.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. An actual garage. Yeah. Yeah.
That's roommates of a sort, and that helps everybody, right? That's the way. That's the community way.
Yeah. And that was the era where he was selling pasta. At that time. Yeah.
So he was at the Monday night market.
That's right.
Which I think at that point was even Wednesday nights. It's before it moved to Mondays. And just all of these intertwined things. I was, in my research, I'm like, oh, he used to manage Band Marino.
That's right.
I played in a band called Watch Me Disappear, and we played shows with Band Marino.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah, so there was like a tight-knit community at that time. We were on a music comp together called Fun Balaya, if you remember that.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it was interesting to me too, and I don't think this had been brought up in like interviews that I was checking out and things like that, but Anna and Nathan Bond. Nathan was a singer-songwriter of Band Marino, and they're also kind of in the printing business as well with Rifle Paper Company.
Yeah. They when they started Rifle, we were on Fairbanks in Winter Park, and it was almost like a duplex of a studio, like separated by a driveway in the middle. There's like a scooter shop in there now or something.
I know the spot. Yeah.
Yeah. We were on the left side. That's when we really went hard in Mama's Sauce. We painted the outside red. We hung meat in the window. Got a deli case, and then that's where they started up first. There was the first shop right next door to us. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, and it's a small world. Yeah, Nathan and I go way back, as well as Anna. Yeah. When I was managing Band Marino and a couple other bands, Anna actually would do a lot of our art. She did the Band Marino cover art.
Oh yeah,
she would do all the posters. So yeah, she was an aspiring commercial artist, and she did art for them and another band I managed called Baron Von Bear. Joey, the singer, was cousin. Well, I call him Cousin Timmy. Timmy's cousin. Yeah, and that's why I call him Cousin Timmy. Yeah.
And that's So that's how Tim came to be here in town.
Exactly.
He had mentioned that.
Yeah.
Just all of these connectors. I mean, Orlando is the biggest small town, and the people that aren't familiar with Orlando, they don't realize like how community oriented everything is here, and how like, I don't know, it keeps us honest. It's like if somebody is has a bad reputation, you kind of know about it. And the flip side of that is that people that are good to work with get connected to everybody else eventually. You know, it's like, I'm just amazed that you and I haven't really crossed paths. I mean, I'm sure we've been in the same room together many a time, but like this is our first actual conversation.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, we're practically neighbors. I'm sure we frequent the same restaurants. I'm sure the same store. I'm sure we cross paths all the time.
Yeah. And now we'll get to say hi, which is part of why I love doing this podcast. It's
That's so awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you got in touch. You are doing this amazing bread that we just sampled. Tell me about your bread journey. You had started years ago, right?
Yeah, I started baking bread. I think I'm in my 8th year now.
Okay.
It's like a confluence of things that got me started in bread. One, I was on that no carb kick. And then I came across the philosophy of, if you make it from scratch, at home, then you can eat it. And I think that was a Michael Pollan thing. And I was like, oh my gosh, what are all the things that we can make? Because I'm like just depriving myself. At the time, I was extremely strict in my diet in many, many different ways. And I was like, bread, it's got to be bread. Yeah. And my wife, she owns the kitchen. It's her passion. Nice. Everything in the kitchen. She had no interest in making bread. She tried a few times and had some failures, and it was like, not for me. And I was like, this is something I can carve out space for myself.
Yeah.
And get kitchen time. And it's linked to her passions, which is another very important thing. It's also how I got into gardening. Food is a big passion of hers, so it was a pastime I could do that was linked to hers.
Yeah.
And so, it was very much finding an appropriate way to break me out of the spell of being too stringent on what I ate and marrying it with my wife's passions. Yeah.
That is so sweet. Just the fact that it brought you closer together and you found like your way of like a relationship, a good relationship is the best team that you'll ever be part of.
Yeah.
And to find like your role in that team and strengthen that, and it just strengthens the bond once you kind of figure out your place in it, right?
Yeah, and you can create all these amazing rituals. Like we're just coming out of Thanksgiving, there's all these rituals around Thanksgiving and food. But I find that more mundane daily food rituals to be so beautiful as well,
Tell me about that.
I mean, with bread, I usually bake on Saturday mornings, and I'm up early. And Lydia, my wife, I love when she gets up on Saturday and she wakes up to the smell of bread, and I know what that's like. Mm-hmm. I know it's like to feel at home with the smell of food too. Like when I went away to college, and I'd come home. Like I remember the first time I woke up on Sunday morning coming back from college, and the smell of garlic and olive oil. Mm-hmm. When my mom was starting Sunday sauce, because we're Italian Americans.
Yeah,
and I was like, I'm home.
Wow.
And as we sew those things in, around our house, like this is my touch, because there's so many things that Lydia does that makes me feel at home in the kitchen. I'm like, this is one of the things I do. Mm-hmm. And I also make coffee in the morning, and she wakes up to the smell of coffee and the smell of bread, and these daily rituals around food make me really, really, really happy.
That's so sweet. And those are two of the best smells to wake up to. So I'm sure she appreciates that very much.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So you have been baking bread for you and your wife, and now you're branching out. And how long have you offered bread kind of on the local market here?
So in the 8 years, I'm in my 8th year, 7, 8 years, something like that, I've probably given away thousands of loaves of bread. And my MO is I race to proficiency. Like I will just become fixated on something. And so for a couple of years, I was baking 20 loaves, 30 loaves of bread in my kitchen a week, maybe more sometimes. And I would fill up my backpack, fill up my car, and then everywhere we went, it was Goodwill. And so I've been offering it on the Goodwill market ever since day one.
It's a good way to make friends and strengthen those friend bonds, right?
Yeah.
And then everybody's like, oh, well, can I trade with this person? It's good.
Yeah, eventually after some years, it was just recently I started selling bread, and it was very hard to do that, to take money after so many years of just giving it away.
Yeah.
But I wanted to make that turn. After selling Mama's Sauce, I sold the company, I think 2 years ago or so, and I took a little bit of time off. And I thought, what's next for me? I think, I want to try seeing what I can do with bread, and hopefully pasta too. I've got a very interesting pasta thing going on right now.
Cool.
Yeah.
I saw that your great-grandfather had a patent for a specific pasta shape.
Correct.
Yeah, tell me about that. That's so cool.
That pasta shape is called quadrifiore, like a squared flower. And it's a really cool pasta shape. And so we have the original patent from the digital archives of the patent office. And through a lot of sleuthing, and there's only one place that produces that right now.
Is that an American company?
It's Francis Ford Coppola bought the company.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so he bought that company. I got with the reps there when I went to him and said, hey, you're making this pasta. I want to know where, because they report that they use the original brass dies. And so we went together down the rabbit hole, and they confirmed we bought this on 3rd Avenue in Brooklyn from a pasta. And I was like, my great-grandfather's, his company was on 3rd Avenue in Brooklyn, in Bay Ridge. So I've been like their number one buyer of that pasta since. And it went off the website a couple months ago. And so I emailed, because I got like a rep there now,
Yeah.
And I emailed James. I said, hey, what's going on? He's like, oh, we still have some in backstop. We should have to, produce some more. And then I just emailed him the other day. I said, it's still not on the website, but I ordered what was in their warehouse still. And I still wanted to order some, it's Christmas. I want to give it away to family and stuff because it's a family thing.
Yeah.
And so he said, actually, there's been some mergers and companies, And so anyways, it's no longer going to be offered. And so I've spent actually some hours today going through everything, trying on the path to see if I can acquire the original dies. Wow. So if I can do that, then we'll be adding pasta to the lineup of Neighbor Bread, maybe Neighbor Pasta as well.
What a legacy.
It'd be incredible.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I love stories like that, and just learning where people's passions come from, as far as like getting so deep into something where you're like, I want to make the best version of this that I possibly can, do all the research, and then it uncovers some other layers, and then you learn some new things and you connect with people. And what a wild thing to like find out, and that, you trace it back and it's a very specific purveyor of this and the only one. And now you can maybe prevent this food from going extinct, right?
Yeah.
That's like...
Yeah. A very little known pasta shape that's on the verge of extinction as it appears right now.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, there might be something going on in the back end I'm not aware of, but I've got calls out all over the place, emails. I'm talking to their PR people, like, this would be a great story,
Yeah, it would. Yep.
Yeah. So, but at the same time, I also have the patent designs out in Italy with a manufacturer looking at producing the actual molds for modern machines as well.
Okay. So you've got a plan B in case you can't get those.
I've got a plan B, but it dawned on me today. So in building Mama Sauce, and it's important to know that for the context of this, Mama Sauce, we use like cast iron machines, clink clack, treadles on them sometimes, flywheels, and
they look old-timey.
Yeah.
And steampunk even.
Yeah, and they hit this like, oh, definitely. Uh-huh. They hit this this period where they had largely died out, and they lived and there's this nether region of what were largely older men in their 80s and 90s at the time when I got into the business that were retiring, and they were just kind of like fiddling around their shops for some years while other modern forms took form. Mm-hmm. And so I made my Mama Sauce by living in that company, like going to these people, finding them, rather than going to scrap, buying these things for next to nothing, usually spending time with these people, learning that craft. Mm. Now, these old pasta manufacturing, machines are quite similar, and the original machines are there. I know that from they said the machines they have are from 1913.
Wow.
And this mold would be from 1935, and so the machine makes sense to me. And the path to victory of resurrecting something on the verge that is artisan based is something I've done. I was like, I was talking to my mother today. I was like, is everything that I learned in those 15 years at Mama Sauce doing that, has that led me to this moment? To cut my teeth on this thing, and now to turn and face and do it again, perfected, I put in air quotes, hopefully.
Sure.
Or improved,
yeah.
In the pasta realm.
Just the highest form that you can possibly achieve, right? Yeah. And in the time that we have here, and you spend your time very well. You have so many irons in the fire, so many things that you're working on. Is that why you had made the decision to sell Mama Sauce, the company?
Yeah, free range Nick is the best Nick.
Understood.
Yeah.
Don't want to be tied down to just one behemoth, which that company is because of its success, right? I mean, it just became huge.
Yeah, and it was also coming out of COVID was almost like starting over. Mm. And relationships that I had for years turned into strong alliances to help us get through COVID with other companies that did the same things. And I felt, from my standpoint, what I saw was coming together, either me acquiring this other place or another place acquiring us was the path forward, right? And I was like, yeah, free range Nick, let's go, And so we're leaning into those alliances. I went to a couple of different partners that we worked closely with, during COVID. And I said, which one of these ways would be the right way? And I'll put my cards on the table. What do you think? And it was a big gamble to just walk away from something I spent 15 years on, but I feel really good about it. It's put me in an incredible place. I'm happier than ever. I love that chapter. I love the people I worked with. I love the work that we did. But it's allowed me to, in effect, the company was at a point pre-COVID where I could have a lot of irons in the fire. But coming out of COVID, it would have had to been all mama sauce again.
Yeah.
Right? This has been a very interesting couple years. Maybe they're past it, maybe we're not, I'm not sure.
Yeah. But I'm sure like having to start over with some of those contacts and the methods and different things of just like, you've done that already, right? It's like, it's not as interesting when you've already done it and you're having to kind of like redo some of that. And I'm sure that the passion for it's like, you need to find your next thing that you're going to be really passionate about and have the patience to really take the time with it, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm certainly not alone in feeling that moment was a time for reinvention and renewal. It probably lit that up in a lot of people.
Yeah. A lot of the podcast stories even have ended up kind of going there of just like, during the pandemic, I was like, even another bread maker that I interviewed who's at the Monday Night Market.
Yeah, great work.
Really, really excellent. Yeah, and that was the thing. It was like he was creating these breads and these pizzas and, tried to open a shop in Sanford, didn't pan out. And then it's like, this is just all I want to do. I just want to do bread and pizza. And he's made it a success too, which is incredible to just be able to focus on that one thing. And people do value the time and effort and the quality of ingredients. And it's like, they understand why this loaf doesn't cost what store-bought bread is going to cost. There's a lot of reasons behind that. Yeah.
There's a certain client that Caesar or myself would be looking for, I assume Caesar as well, right?
Yeah.
It's in essence the same market and the same product, philosophy, right? The best you can do with the best ingredients that you can find in the slowest manner.
Right. And the health benefits, the fact that some people have stopped eating bread and then they realize, I can actually do this and feel healthy. You were telling me earlier how you basically eat a half a loaf of bread every time you bake.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't have extra weight on you. So clearly isn't going to like affect your health adversely, right?
Yeah, these are, I'm not sophisticated enough in my knowledge of it to explain it accurately. So I might get lambasted by saying it's almost pre-digested, right?
Right.
But by, countless microbes, made up of fungi and bacteria they're in essence processing this and creating new products that, that their byproduct is what fills the gluten, which grows the loaf. And if you do that slow enough, you've really processed that wheat in an extraordinary manner, and you're creating something that we've been eating for 10,000 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoy that. There's something also meditative about making it, which is really, really amazing. Mm-hmm. And I would be lying if I said there was meditative about eating it. I just usually gorge it all different kinds of ways. Yeah.
Well, you're reaping the benefit of the meditation that you've already done. So you don't need to meditate twice. Yeah. Just like get into it and enjoy it the best way you know how.
Yeah. Yeah. I really relish things that are made up of the simplest, like edited. You were talking about editing your pie. Like editing is everything. Get it down to the minimum. And that's what I love about bread. With the exception of the sesame I brought you, there's sesame in there. But the other loaves, it's flour, it's water, it's salt. Mm. That's it. Mm-hmm. It doesn't get much more simple than that.
Right.
And the path to meditation on that, like, what can I do with these three things? Mm. I baked the same loaf of bread for probably, I'm still making 8 years. Mm-hmm. I barely deviated from one loaf of bread, thousands of loaves of bread, the one type. just going down that center and just like, how far can you take it now?
That is a real meditation, isn't it?
Yes, it's a real meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Same flour, same water, same salt, trying to get different results.
Yeah.
With just time and temperature.
And what do you learn throughout that journey? I mean, I'm sure that getting all of the elements of the bread right where you want them, the crust, the flakiness of the crust, the way that it rises. What are some of the things that you've really kind of discovered during this process? About
bread or about life?
Both. Yeah, start with bread.
Yeah, start with bread. 101, if you're baking bread in Florida, it's not what's in the books, Same if you've gardened, if you're listening to this, you garden in Florida, it's like you have to get a book written for gardening in Florida.
That's right.
The same with baking naturally leavened breads in Florida, because of the humidity and because of the heat, When you read some of the most popular books and some of the most groundbreaking books in this, these folks are baking in kitchens that are 66 degrees, 68 degrees.
Yeah.
Now I'm not a maniac that keeps my house that cold. I'm a 77, 78 kind of guy during the summer, like, which some people deem as warm. But
that's all we can afford mostly.
Yeah, exactly. That's my comfort point. We just fixed our heat for this winter. I'm just in time. I ran my heat for the first time last night. Yeah, so we didn't have heat for a couple of years. So in the winter, I was like, I didn't mind. I was like, yeah, we'll just let that heat ride for a while. I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's nice when you're baking bread when it's this cold too, because it's like kind of heats up your house a little bit.
Oh man, I came in this morning to the hot kitchen. Yeah, and I was like, oh, this is so nice right now. In the summer, it can be wicked.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm still baking in the kitchen. I have 2 ovens that I bought that are not set up yet. I've had them for a year. I ordered them during COVID because it took forever.
Okay.
And then I started on building a detached, like mother-in-law suite, what the city calls an ADU, an additional dwelling unit. But it's going to be it's a detached spot that the ovens are going to go in where all that heat will be contained and all that magic will be contained, and it'll be a place to start really doing more with this,
Wow.
But for now, I'll enjoy that heat when I come in on the winter, yeah. But we started that, and that's been a project for 3 years now. Just,
wow.
Not of anyone's fault but my own,
Yeah, I mean, when there's so much life to be had, and these things, like, they take time, and we have to be in the right mindset to really devote the time. It's like you're still doing the work of the bread, and that's the fun stuff. Sometimes construction and build out and that sort of thing. It's like, all right, we'll get to it when we get to it. Yeah,
it's sitting there. It's formed up. It's waiting. The footers are dug out. It's just waiting now for a plumber and yada yada. And I've got all the parts and materials. It'll come. Yeah, it'll come. But I'm not in a rush. Just like with the bread, and that's another thing I learned actually.
Okay,
you can't rush bread. So we originally had scheduled another day.
Yes,
and then I had
to record our podcast.
Yes. And so I had to on I think it was a Saturday. I had actually scheduled on that Friday. I was like, that morning I was like, I have to go somewhere now. Like, it came up, I had to take a flight real quick, and I was like, I looked at your calendar. I was like, oh, I can do it the next day or whatever it was. And I looked at it and I was like, normally I would just do it, and then I'd try to figure. I was like, no, I can't rush the bread because I was committed to bringing you bread.
Yeah.
And I've tried to cheat it before. And you can find a new way to do this, right? I've got a calendar and a rhythm, and I understand it. And you're in a relationship with things that you bring into your world and you live with all the time. And in order to make the bread perform the way like that calendar would need to, it's like I would have to live in a relationship in that way in order to make it meet that need. So I was like, let me push it to Wednesday.
Yeah. And
then I could be on my schedule, because it's like doing it in a different timeline. I can't guarantee it's going to be right. I need weeks of developing that timeline. Like how, what is in this temperature the right amount of my starter to utilize? What is the right time to auto-lease it for this time? It's just like,
wow.
Yeah. You can't cheat it.
You have to respect the schedule of the bread, right? The timing of it.
Yeah.
That is interesting.
Yeah. Whatever you get out of the book, you're going to make it your own, because 1, you're in Florida, and 2, you're your own person and you're looking for your own results. And you're going to come up with your own thing. And then that's going to be part of your food tradition, Like, I think forward in the future of maybe being a father. It's like, yeah, Dad would get up on Friday mornings and he would feed his starter and, do this. And like, just the way I move through the house, someone one day will kind of remember that as a memory, And then it all led to, 24 hours later, the house smelling like bread.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that. And I like it. I feel a little emotional hearing you say that, because I just listened to the recording that you made with your dad, A Pigeon Man. And wow, like what a cool project, what a moving story, and just how you approach it. Just listening to your dad about his favorite thing in the world, this thing that he's done since he was a kid, right? And I'm very sorry for the loss of your father. I read that. It the the recording, and it was something specifically that you had captured because you want to pass that on to your children so they can know their grandfather, even though it's not in person. The things that we do with our time and the things that really count and are important and that we sit down and commit to doing, I'm so moved by somebody taking the time to do that and think it out and do such a beautiful job where anybody could listen to this, and the music with it just fits so perfectly. And your dad just has this way about him that, like, you listen to this thing and you're just like, I feel like I know this guy. I feel like, what a rare gift.
I mean, it means the world that you say that you feel like you know this guy, because the impetus of it was that I wanted my future family, whether they're my descendants or my sisters or whoever, to know him. I suffer from a little bit of ancestor worship, probably as a result of being the son of my father, and I think back to we all stand on the shoulders of giants, and for you and for me, it's the people that came before us, and I don't know them, I don't know my great-grandfather that made the pasta, but I have this original photo of him in his pasta factory in Torre Annunziata in outside of Naples in Italy that my distant cousin gave me last time I was there. Wow. And it's shadow box framed by my father-in-law, and it's going to go in the bakery. And I wish I would have known him. I wish I would have known my grandfather. These people I never got to know.
But you still have this relationship with at a distance, right? At a distance,
yeah. And a strong desire. And if my children, Jah willing, have any, if they have a touch of what I have, they'll want to know the same way I wanted to know. So I wanted to make something that people would leave and go, I feel like I know something about that man. Mm-hmm. Or just say, wow, what a cool voice.
An amazing voice.
An amazing voice.
The accent, just,
Yeah. Yeah.
So beautiful. I mean, it's so New York. Just, it's like hearing like a story from the neighborhood, right? Yeah. And the fact that it is your dad, and just how he speaks to you, there's just such a sweetness there, and such a personal project. And I love that you can just Google A Pigeon Man with your name and listen to this thing. I'll link it in the podcast as well. Everybody should listen to it. It's just so beautiful. I was so moved by it.
Thank you. Shout out to Joshua McWilliams, my good friend that did the editing for all that as well.
He did a tremendous job, for sure.
Thank you so
you
much.
Both did. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I have another personal project actually that I've been working on with my friend Ali Castro for some years. Some of these, they just, irons in the fire. Some of them take a long time.
Yeah.
And I was hoping to finish it before I sold Mama Sauce, because I want to print it myself, but I still have some print equipment, so I still will. But when I moved away to college, my mom wrote down all like her recipes, all this Italian American dishes, and in like what are those books called? They are speckled black and white on the front.
Composition.
Book. I was going to say compost book, because I guess my gardening mind.
You were halfway there.
Yeah. So my friend Ali Castro is an illustrator, and she's illustrated a bunch of stuff for it and worked out all the typography stuff. And now it's so close. Now I just got to get into the copy and everything else, and I'm going to hand print and hand bind, a small edition of these for the family, and just a handful to put out there. But it's just, just an heirloom thing. I've done a video project with my mom as well in college that wasn't so sophisticated as I'd like it to be, but she's an amazing woman. And people know her food, but yeah, I do want another project, people to know her. She's like, you could write a movie about her life.
Really?
Yeah, for sure.
Wow.
Probably same with my dad, but my mom is just, everything. Yeah.
is there anything that you want to say about like the focus of it, of this project, or the video project that you've done? Is that something that's out in the public, or is it just a personal thing?
Yeah, it was just a personal thing. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. It was just, it was about two different people in the same station in life, but they both came from completely different places. And it was almost like my attempt at trying to say that how far my mom came from nothing, you know, from absolutely nothing. Yeah. Just incredible woman. But yeah, it's not all these personal projects. Like there's so many I'd love to do, you know, more, you know, on all kinds of things and folks.
And now that Mama's Sauce isn't your responsibility, you may have time to do those. Perhaps
depends on how hard I go on the bread. Depends on other stuff. You know, I started out consulting. After I took some time off from Mama Sauce, I went to Italy for a while, and then came back and just was like, all right, what's next? And then I was like, I'm going to start doing some business consulting. And I was like, I just want to do 10 hours a week. And that's it. And now, like, it's just, it's what I do. And and I try to keep Fridays and Saturdays sacred for baking, because ultimately I want to just bake. Yeah. And work in my garden and grow food and be part of the community and make honey with our bees and stuff like that. But
you'll always find many other things to involve yourself with.
Always.
I see a trend here.
Yeah. I'm always deep and thick in it. I go hard.
Yeah, man. Go hard or go home, right? They don't say that, but maybe they should.
I go hard on, do you ever go hard on just relaxing sometimes too?
I do, big time. Yeah. Gabby and I have mastered that, in fact.
On the regular?
Yeah, especially during the pandemic, and like we had some major health struggle stuff that we went through, and luckily we're mostly coming out on the other side of it. But yeah, it did require a lot of patience and a lot of downtime and a lot of just appreciating just being, and she's very ambitious and a very busy person all the time. So that experience made her definitely slow down and kind of appreciate that downtime a bit more. Life will do that to you, I think, at some point, but the most important thing, I think, is having that purpose and that thing that drives you, and taking breaks when you need to make sure you don't burn out, and, for your own health, that goes with it. But yeah, just like always find that passion. Like I'm a person of many irons in the fire as well. And there's not one of them that I would choose to like just do this one thing. It's hard to even like think about that. I want to be doing multiple things that kind of stimulate my brain in different ways and my creativity, and I'm just a very social person. So we find those things that kind of include us in the community and connect with people.
I can learn something from you about more downtime more often, I think, and as a ritual. I'm getting there. Yeah, I'm getting there for sure. Like I now
You're still young, I think, right?
40. I'll be 44 here shortly.
Okay. Yeah, you're a baby.
Yeah, I'm a young man.
Here I am, 46, and I'm like,
How are your knees? Are your knees in good shape?
Knees are pretty good.
Oh, good.
Back's not great, but we have our weak spots.
Yeah, we all have Achilles heels. Yeah, I'm gonna go do that that PRP in my knees.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, see, I'll let you know how it goes.
Yeah,
I might end up doing my back too. Not a great back either.
I see. I see.
Let's not make this a random health, podcast. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We're not quite at that age where that's all we talk about.
Yeah. It's starting to dominate.
It is a little bit more, right?
Yeah.
I'd love to talk about the Memoir Agency.
Sure.
So you are the chief operating officer, interim, right?
Yep. That grew out of the consulting thing, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So that's a large-scale event and brand activation company, and produces events at Lou Gardens, Haunting Nights, and Happy Frights, which we did go to. It was very fun.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, that was a fun one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I started consulting for Memoir in January, just on a kind of C-suite consulting level. And as they started getting closer to show season, they asked me if I would just come in as an interim COO to be a little more active in it, and I agreed to do that. And it's been fun. It's really great. The mission of that company is to bring meaning to every moment. And when these events are firing, you look around and you see people creating memories with their kids. You get that, and you're like, oh wow, mission statement's not just a fluffy thing.
Yeah,
like right now, there's at Dazzling Nights, there's this big ornament installation where these giant, like 90-inch, like silver balls and gold ball, like look at ornaments, or like almost like a boxing ring. And showing a dad like mowing down his kid with that, but having, like Indiana Jones style, having the time of their life, and you're like, oh, they're making a memory,
I love that.
Yeah, it's really cool. And the company's super great. Activating Lou Gardens is, I didn't seek this opportunity to consult there and then to come in and try to help with the systems and growth. But the fact that it's in gardens, like, it makes it even more special because we moved to Audubon Park. We live in the Merritt Park area, so next door.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Not deep in the Merritt Park, in the normie section of Merritt Park.
Sure. Yeah.
But we moved here. One of the reasons is that we love being next to the gardens.
Yeah.
I get to go walk in Lou Gardens anytime I want. Now I get to do that at night,
Yeah.
So it's like, it's
what
just
a rare
awesome.
treat.
Yeah.
Because before it used to be like only they had like the jazz stroll, and then they had movie in the park. And that was really the only time you could be there, outside of being an employee in evenings. Mm-hmm. So I love that they have so much programming for the evening there because it's a perfect space, a perfect venue. And I mean, we love going there during the day. We get a membership every time. We renew every year. It's the best value you can get.
Can we plug that for them
yes,
right now?
Absolutely.
I mean,
let's do that.
It used to be $55, which was the most incredible
per household.
Per
yes,
household.
Yes.
But now I think it's up maybe 85. Is that
I think it's 85. Still a steal.
Yeah. So much so that we have friends in Sarasota, friends in Fort Lauderdale, friends in Miami that are members at Lou. So because they have a reciprocal program where you can get in all these other gardens around the country.
Yeah.
They're members at Lou because it's like half the price.
That's so smart.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just, it pays in dividends to be a member there and support something so special in the middle of the city.
Yeah, it truly does. And during our recovery for our health stuff, that was where we could go and walk and not have like lots of traffic. So we could go at our own pace. And it's just so gorgeous. I mean, the entire thing, it's such a gem to the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And such an anchor. It's like something that I think some people, they don't think about as often. So I think events like that kind of remind people like, oh, this is really grand. And it's like right here on this lake, they have all of these different habitats for these plants, like different groups of styles of plants and things and stuff that you won't see anywhere else. It's world class for sure.
Yeah. I'm biased because I live right there, but yeah, I use that reciprocal program and I go to gardens in every place we visit, and it's world class. Yeah, it really, really is. So if you haven't been,
right,
it sounds like you have, but you out there,
make a point to
go.
And get that family annual membership. It's such a good move, and it'll keep you coming back there.
Yeah, and if you are like my wife Lydia and you're not a fan of the sun, come at night during Dazzling Nights because they're non-UV producing lights. Right. And we activate 12 areas of the garden with different light installations. We have like a dancing tube show that goes to music with these light tubes that do a routine. There's a laser area. Just really, really beautiful stuff. Yeah, now that we're fully open, things are pumping, like and the weather's perfect. I'd say definitely come out for sure. It's cool.
Yeah, it's a great way to celebrate the holidays. It puts you in the spirit. It's different every year. So, it's not one of those things that's like, oh, I've been to that once, I don't need to see it. It's like, I can't wait to see what they've done this year.
Oh, that's good for you to say that, because I'm the one always pushing back, being like, we don't have to make it that different. That costs a lot of money. Like,
I bet it does.
One thing new, let's have a lot of through lines, but no, it's good to hear you say that. There's value in that. I know there's value in that.
Of course. And as you go along, it's like, it's not been a production for all that long. So you kind of figure out what might be the best things, what works, what doesn't, and like tweak it. And then it just kind of gets better and better every year, right?
Yeah. So it's not been a company very long. It's not been a production very long, and it became wildly successful, which creates all kinds of trouble for a company when you're just when you're met with demand that you weren't really built or had in mind. And that's how I came to try to come to the organization and systemize them to meet this demand. And we're still working on getting it right. There's just, I mean, the company was born during the pandemic to bring people together outside. That was the first Dazzling Nights.
That makes sense.
And so it's that young.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, you go from zero to a big company, and without infrastructure. And we're making improvements, shipping systems every day, but it's not fast enough because these events are there, and we have to get it done. So it's a wild ride.
Yeah.
It's definitely a wild ride, and it's funny because some days I'm like, well, I agreed to do this. I'm here to do it. I'm happy to do it. But like, I got out of owning a business because I don't want the buck to stop with me. And then I remember, oh wait, the buck doesn't stop with me. I don't own this business. Yeah, it's a joy to do this. And so even in the hardest times, if you don't own the business, it's still like, for me, after owning businesses for a long time, I was like, oh, this is still kind of like a vacation. Yeah. And in a way, it's hard work.
You can step away from it and know that somebody else is going to take the helm when they need to. And you're not, all of the outcomes aren't kind of on you in a way, right?
Yeah.
Or at least leading a team that produce the outcomes, right?
Yeah. When you're a small business owner or medium business owner, the amount of lost sleep over worrying about the people that you work with. Yeah. And getting it together so they're built, so their checks are going to clear. Right.
Right.
Like that's the end game of that. That's stressful, man. You carry all this financial weight until a company gets to a certain size and just becomes a perpetual systemized thing. The weight just sits on the owners. It really does. And everyone carries different weights. The whole team carries that when a company's just wildly crazy busy.
Yeah. Yeah. But, so that was like your 30s. You were doing this business that just kept growing and growing. So you've got a lot of experience with kind of ramping up and having to meet these demands, and then just like the growth never really stops, right? Yeah. So you're very well versed in that.
Very well versed in that. And also philosophically, I think I align with the ownership at Memoir because we're concerned with delivering an excellent product. Mama Sauce was like, it had to be excellent. We're charging $2 or $3 for an individual business card. It's like, it's got to be good. Yeah.
Something that really makes you stop and say, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And so those ambitions at Memoir are there. But it's, the company has a lot going on, a lot of shows. It's like, to deliver on that sometimes feels impossible, and sometimes we're falling a little short. It's like it's not living up to the standards that we have for it. And that's a time and a place in a business. And I remember those times with Mama Sauce where like I'd miss the mark. I'd be up all night printing something and not getting it right where I wanted it. And sometimes that's you, and you're carrying this weight, and like at the end of the day, the client's happy with it. Yeah. And sometimes it's objectively also, it's hard to see the difference.
It doesn't match your vision necessarily, but it's still a great product, maybe, right? Yeah. And that could be one example.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's objectively bad.
Yeah, sometimes it is.
And it's hard to see that when you care so much and you don't, and you're so concerned with quality, you don't know. But this is rehashing a lot of those like memories, but from a different vantage point now. Mm-hmm. As I interact with the business from a different vantage point, I get to see it from this, from not being the active owner, which is interesting and neat.
Yeah.
I dig it.
I could see how you would be an excellent fit for it, given those things. They say you're only as good as your last show, which in show business or whatever that applies to. And I don't know if that's still a thing that's said, but some people do treat it that way, right? It's like, it doesn't matter if you had great reviews or great outcomes. That last thing that you did is what people are going to know you by. But I don't think necessarily that applies here, because we've gone multiple years, and some years are like more our favorites than others, but it doesn't diminish the experience, and it doesn't make us not want to go back.
I would think of it as Orlando's own thing, and as it's growing, you're watching it grow, and you're supporting something novel in the city that is going to be a big thing around the country as well, because it's growing into other cities.
Cool.
And if you can embrace it from that standpoint, and you go, yeah, and say, oh, some years are more, I like them better and some than others, but it's still cool. It's like, it's Orlando's own. We're making it, and so hopefully people will find pride in that. And another thing to be really proud about, and we just coming out of Lou Gardens, we just talked about how special places. I think we contributed. This is all public record stuff, so it's fine. I think we contributed 20, somewhere between 20 and 22% of their budget last year.
Wow,
came from our shows.
Yeah. And that was just during the holiday season at that time, because it was really only the December time frame, right? Yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah. Imagine what kind of programs may develop out of that by all of a sudden getting that kind of injection into that garden. I hope that we have that partnership for a long time. And it's important to me because I love that. I love that place.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah.
It's such a gift to the city, and I mean, it literally was private property that was gifted to the city. And so there's so much benefit from having something like that. I mean, we have some of the happiest birds and bees in Central Florida, and I'm sure for your garden, and you keep bees as well, I understand.
Bees,
yeah. So they get to benefit from all the plant life at Lou Gardens.
I love being in there going, I wonder if that's my bee, or not my bee, but the bee that I cohabitate with in my backyard. Yeah. Yeah.
Say hi to your bees over there. Like, yeah.
Can I tell you how bread got me into the neighborhood?
Yes, please.
So my wife and I were recovering garage sale people. Our Saturday routine for years was garage sales around this time. We lived in downtown Winter Park. And so we'd garage sale our way over here, and we'd go to Lou Gardens, and we'd go to the thrift store over at the church.
Oh yeah, that's such a great spot.
Yeah, we love it, and we loved where we were in downtown Winter Park. But we'd always say, like, if we can move anywhere, it would be like right here, like right in this neighborhood. At that time, I was really hot into just having bread in my bag all the time, and just giving it out to people. And we went to a garage sale in what is now our current house. And we fell in love with it was obvious that it was somebody's estate. Like somebody had passed away and somebody was managing, stuff. But we fell in love with those people through their home and their books and their furniture. It was like all hand-carved oak furniture. And the books were like everything from Buckminster Fuller to first edition, Cosmos, Carl Sagan, to books on Randall Knives, like knife fighting books.
Wow.
Like really interesting art, all signed by the same person. We're like, I had to be the wife. And it was just neat. And we just kind of we went back to the garage sale several times. And we went back and I asked Kim, who was the executor of the state church, I was like, I just have to ask you, like, did somebody pass away? And obviously, I think that's what happened. And who were they? Doctors? Were they lawyers? Like, they were obviously interesting people. And she just sighed and put her hand out. She's like, let me tell you about Gene and Jerry, And we went on and we talked and she was super sweet. And I was like, can I offer you a loaf of bread? And I could just reach my bag and hand it to him. We just chatted over the bread, and she was like just taken back. And when people get, in any context, if you go to the market and buy some of Caesar's bread, or some random guy pulls out a really well baked loaf of bread from his backpack, and
which never happens, but apparently sometimes it does.
Sometimes it does, It can enhance a moment. It can make a moment. It pulls memories out of people.
Yeah.
It changes people's lives. It changed my life, encountering good bread. I have neighbors that bake now. It's like, that you brought me that loaf of bread a couple years ago. I've been baking bread ever since. It changed. Our family sat around the table marveling at this bread, and that's what we do now.
Wow.
And so back into the living room here at Gene and Jerry's / Nick and Lydia's, and we bonded there over Gene and Jerry and some bread. And then I was just like, I feel like, this, like, what's happening with this house? Like, I feel like this, like we belong here.
Yeah.
And she's like, I think so too.
Wow.
Yeah. And we bought the house.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. It was like you were having a memorial for a couple that you had not met, but you were getting to know just through looking at their stuff that was still in the home and feeling like the energy of the home too, because that's a real thing.
I felt the energy when I walked in. I saw the energy when I saw the front of your house. Thanks for lighting it up for me.
Yes,
so
of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's so crucial. I mean, I think that when you find that thing and, I just, the vibrations of, I mean, not to get like too spiritual, but there's something that's changed in us when we're in a space that we connect with and when we're near people that we connect with, even after they're gone. I mean, in a case like this, it's like you can make assumptions or judgments or draw lines to kind of figure out who these people were just by kind of looking at their home. And you really loved what you saw, and that's like part of that like ancestry thing, right? This is like, not your ancestors, but somebody's ancestors, and you kind of fell in love with that story right off, which is so cool.
Yeah, and we still have some of their some pieces in our home from them still today.
Wow.
I have this beautiful butcher block, like standalone butcher block, one of those that are. It's 30 by 30 by 30 inch cube of solid wood on some legs that I want to put in the bakery.
Wow.
And just keep it part of the home.
Yeah. What a way to honor their memory and keep those traditions alive. Like, I think that people have so much nostalgia for a time when things were really like built to last. We had this mindset of like, well, this is going to be around forever. I'm going to be doing this trade forever. And it's something that's has been a little bit lost, but maybe is coming back, hopefully. I think with some people, at least, they're kind of shining a light on the value of that, of like reviving these machines that almost went extinct.
Yeah. IKEA's Heritage Edition.
Right.
If they did something like that.
Yeah. No, that's a prime example, though. I mean, none of that stuff is built to last, and it's a bummer, know? It's cheap. And it may look good and it serves a purpose, but there are drawbacks to having a disposable lifestyle. And I mean, that's definitely one of the things that drew me to Audubon Park is just like these houses, they're mid-century modern. They were built at a time when like they really were built to last. And as long as this doesn't get torn down and rebuilt with something else, like this house is going to be here. It survived every hurricane so far. It's wonderful to kind of carry on these traditions and be part of this thing and make other people see the value in it too. I think that's so cool.
Yeah. I think about those through lines, going back to even like Pigeon Man and things built to last. And I think about the things that I acquire and keep. And I think I mentioned this earlier, like everything that you bring in your life, you have a relationship with. Everything wants from you, right? And like you have to give life to, and so the less that you have, the more you can give to it.
Yeah.
And I think about, when I think of through line and people, if I invest in too many things that last forever and then it's like, now here, kids, or here, take over this and find out which of this means something to you, and then hang on to it. You don't have to hang on to it all. I know some people in my family, I know some people that put so much value on every single little thing, that maybe came from my father, came from someone else. It's like, for me, I have my dad's pigeon clock, and I have a couple other things that mean something to me. But it's important to me at a certain point to let go of the meaning of some of those things, because there's only so much you can really give value to. Like everything on the shelf has to be picked up and dusted at the very least.
Right.
And it's in risk of being knocked over,
Right.
So,
and you have to have a place for everything.
A place for everything. Yeah.
I'll never have a storage container, and and no shade to anybody who does, but like it stresses me out thinking about having stuff that can't live where I live. And it's like, is it really my stuff? What am I doing with it? And like you said, it's like it wants from you. You have to put your hands on it. You have to make it useful. Otherwise, it's kind of just stuff. And what are you doing with it? Yeah. It stresses me out. It's a weird that energy thing. Like there are even things in this house. It's like there's always some paring down that we should be doing or could be doing. And I look forward to having the time and the energy to doing that. But overall, the thing is like, your house should give you energy, shouldn't stress you out.
Yeah.
You should enjoy it, just like the bread, and find the meditation in the things that you can find the meditation in.
Just like the bread. One of my favorite parts about eating a half a loaf of bread, like I did today, is I have a pleasant bread taste in my mouth all day.
Yeah. That's a beautiful thing.
Like, it makes me want more and more of it. Yeah.
And it's just a little thing that you notice that you're just like, oh, that's there. Mm-hmm. And that's like that love, that's extra appreciation and gratitude. And just like all of these themes, like I'm just really drawn to people who have a great gratitude for like how they spend their time, what drives them. Like it's so important to our existence, finding your calling and knowing that calling can change, mm-hmm. and it's okay. It's like, I love with the recordings with your father, like, he was really hoping that you would take on some pigeons of your own, and how he frames it too, of just like, when I'm showing kids my pigeons, there's always one that stays behind and has more questions and wants to spend more time with the pigeons. It's like, that's the kind of interest that you need to have in order to do this thing, mm-hmm. And it's like, for the rest of them, like, they're like, oh, this is cool, and they move on. But, finding that thing and finding that pair of just like, okay, this is maybe something that I could see myself doing and carry that on. I think that's so cool.
When I have created the space in my life to take on another living being, a living thing, that's when I'll get a pair of pigeons, and probably nothing much more than that. Bees were easy to add onto my life because they're basically semi-domesticated, as in like they're wild animals that agree to live in a box and they're in your backyard.
Yeah,
I take it as a huge responsibility to live with another life, be it your spouse, your cat, pigeons, or another.
Yeah.
I think my father was an extreme example of devotion to his, he lived for his pigeons, and that was his whole day. It's everything. And that, there maybe is a spectrum, but I feel like when it comes to other lives, like he was probably closer to the truth than further away from it, in that like these things, they're alive and you have to take care of them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd rather be there than an extremist in this case than on the opposite end of neglect. And I worry about that in me because, like I said, I race to proficiency and I tend to move on to other things. So if I lived in a relationship with something but wasn't ready for the long haul to be around and really keep it around, it's like, certainly it's a big risk if it's a living thing. Mm-hmm. So I think of that, and I think of pigeons as like a thing when I'm ready to retire. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? When I'm like, I'm going to be here for a while.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We have a cat, we have bees, and even the cat hates it when we leave. He's becoming a senior kitty, and that's going to affect our world.
Right.
Because we care.
Right.
We were just gone for a little too long recently, and he likes to pee on my dirty clothes if I leave dirty clothes out to let me know.
That'll teach you.
Yeah, when I'm gone, yes. If I'm gone a little too long, or we're only gone a couple of days, but now we're like, if we're gone 3 days, we get a cat sitter, and now it's like, oh, I think it's going to be 2 now,
Yeah.
But man, the responsibility we have to each other, it's wild.
It is wild. I that kind of love and devotion, I think if you don't have that for the animals and the people in your life, then you're missing the point. I really do. I think that we get to choose a lot of this. We don't get to choose our families per se, but we get to choose the boundaries that we have with them. And we want those relationships to be as healthy as possible. And just finding that like honor and respect and love and gratitude. And I think that's kind of where it's at, and you found that connection with your parents in such a way, and like finding ways of honoring your grandparents and things like that, of just like, what a cool thing to be able to give back to the people that brought you here, right? I wish that for everybody. I wish that everybody could find that thing, that way to connect with those who brought us here and to give back. But I know that that's a story that not everybody gets to tell. And I think that it just should be something that we strive for, no matter what.
I think it's easier said than done to say that, to be, to have gratitude. But for me, one of my mantras I live by is like, joy comes from gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
Joy comes from gratitude. I tell myself that all the time.
Yeah.
And
it's so connected.
It's so connected, yeah. And it's easier, it's easier said than done. I mean, I realized that I have a lot to be grateful for. And I know that's relative, but man, I'm just so grateful, and in terms of what you're saying with where we come from, our lineage, people who got us here. I mean, I like I said, I suffer from a little bit of ancestor worship,
Mm-hmm.
and that I'm just so grateful.
Yeah.
So grateful.
It's interesting to me too, the fact that pigeons in particular, they were the source of communication long distance. And the fact that you're a communications major, I don't know if like that line has ever been drawn. So
no, it hasn't. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, so that like there's definitely a theme here of just connection and of communication and maybe that's why your dad was so drawn to the pigeons. It's like, he talked about how much he values pigeons over people, even because people can really screw you over and things like that. And just like he got pigeons and pigeons got him. And that's a beautiful thing.
I always took from that I don't even know. Do I make it explicit? And I don't remember, but they're loyal. They come home to him. Yeah,
totally.
Yeah, I was like, in making that, that's when I realized that. I was like, oh my gosh, pigeons are loyal. Like you could literally, like, I'm going to drive you 500 air miles away and I'm going to go home and then you get back and they're there waiting for you.
Yeah.
They're loyal. They
Incredible.
Come home all the time. And if they don't, that means there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's something, it's wild. It's deep. You can go in a lot of directions with that one, I guess. Yeah.
You can. And that's something that I think having those values and understanding the actual benefit of being loyal yourself and having friends who are loyal. And I don't know, just it's foundational, I think.
Have you made friends in this neighborhood, or did you have existing friends that are also in the neighborhood?
Both. We've got a lot of friends that moved in here, and we've made a lot of friends here. I mean, it's like we know almost all of our neighbors, and at least like on this street, and like, yeah, we're so connected here. And I with Gabby running the Monday Night Farmers Market at Stardust, we've gotten connected with a lot of people that way too, and with things that we have commonality on. It's like caring about good food. I think that's a great starting point, and I think it's been a connector for a lot of people. So she's been doing that almost 15 years now.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's just like a side hustle that she has too. So these are just things that like we find the time to do. We don't have kids. We're not planning on having kids, so we have the time to put out there to do these things, and we love it.
Yeah, I think that's the sense of community here is when I said we wanted to be in this neighborhood, we had no idea about the sense of community, right? And then we got here and it was like, wow, and so we've made friends in the neighborhood. And then it's also, so many people want to be in this neighborhood that your friends eventually, if they're not here already, find their way here.
They do.
Yeah, so I've managed in my neighborhood by being out. I'm always out for a walk or out running. I've either heard about a house going on the market or literally been the first person to see them digging the post hole. In many occasions where some of our best friends moved next door to us, across the street from us. My mom, 5 houses down.
Nice.
Like, there's a benefit to being on the streets, out here in the mean streets of Audubon Park. Yeah, so we've met so many great people. Mm-hmm. And then so many people have come. It's like a magnet, I love that about this neighborhood.
Yeah.
Can I tell you about my neighbor, Henry?
Yes, please do.
Henry he's probably about 4, I imagine.
Okay.
Henry,
I was like, this is either an old man, or it's a turtle, or it's a 4-year-old.
It's a 4, I think he's about 4. I'll have to get clarification on that. But Henry lives with Kevin and Tina and Abigail, his sister and his mom and his dad. And they're some of the first families that I was baking bread for. So neighbor bread, it's called neighbor. It's for the neighbors, right?
Beautiful, yeah.
And but it wasn't originally called neighbor bread, you know.
It was just called bread.
It was just called bread, yeah, because I didn't know about community.
Sure,
the community
yeah.
I had I had several other names for it. Like originally, I was calling it like 100 loaves because my goal is I'm going to make 100 loaves of bread a week. And that's it. That's my ambitions are low, right? Mm-hmm. Because I want to have a lot of other irons in the fire.
Yeah.
You know, but and I say that
you can't rush the product.
You can't rush the product.
Yeah.
Yeah. I say that now, but who knows what I end up doing. But I had a different name for it. And Henry is just as cute as they come, a little firecracker. And every time I started driving by, like when I drive by, he's like, neighbor Nick, and he comes running, neighbor Nick.
Cute.
And I'd bake for them, I bake for them every week. I bake for families, like all kinds of families now every week. I'm getting ingrained in their worlds. It's so cool.
Wow.
And I love that about it. But I was calling it something else. And Henry asked if they're getting neighbor bread today. And I just looked at him, I was like, you just named my company, kid.
That's beautiful.
Like, I hadn't like incorporated it yet and everything. I was like, I already like grabbed an Instagram under a different name. I changed it. I was like, yeah, we're neighbor bread. Like, so neighbor Henry has named the company Neighbor Bread.
I love that so much. It has such a nice ring to it, and it's so perfect that only a 4-year-old could create that, really, right?
Yeah, it's perfect. It nailed the ethos of my whole thing because it's just if anyone wants to come get it, they're welcome to come pick it up. Mm-hmm. That's fine. But like if you're in my neighborhood, like I'll bring it on over to you.
That's cool.
You know what I mean? Yeah, we. Neighbors, the surrounding areas, and that bubble I told you about, still my bubble, the farmer's market. Yeah. So everywhere from the farmer's market to Baldwin Park, wherever I can go to those thrift stores and garage sales on a Saturday morning, I can also deliver bread. Uh-huh. And I say that now, but 100 loaves or whatever, but gosh, I'm sure I also bought all the equipment to be able to like fully like be a bread company, but that's just how I am. Just how I am. But I also did it just to make my life. I wanted to do it with joy, and like not the right equipment, the right tools make the job so much easier, and not that I don't want to suffer in the sense of passion for it, but I don't want to like stress over. I want to do what I say I'm going to do for people when I'm going to do it with excellence. Yeah. And that's
like that.
Yeah. And that's the whole, and with integrity. Mm-hmm. And so, I don't want to wake up with what I call falling down the stairs of entrepreneurship. I've done that several times. You wake up in the stairwell, you're like, what the heck happened there? Like what is this business? Like this is going to be very much with purpose, very slow in both its, the slow food in the sense of slow food movement, but also just very slow and methodical and it's going to start here, and it's FUBU Audubon Park. It's for us, by us in Audubon Park. It's neighbor bread.
I love it.
Yeah,
and so my understanding is that people can order your bread if they go to the website and they sign up for the newsletter.
Neighbor Bread Orlando. Yep, that's right. And sign up for the newsletter, and I send out a weekly email, and people just tell me how many loaves and if they want to deliver or pick up. We'll evolve that system, over time and have reservation systems and pickup times and windows and all that stuff. But right now, it's just, keeping it simple, like neighbors do, you know, and we'll get more sophisticated in the ordering process in the future. But you just go to Neighbor Bread Orlando, sign up for the newsletter. There is an Instagram, but I think my tagline is no social, just bread.
I saw that. Yeah. I found that to be so interesting because there's so much of work that you've done in the past that has required that social media presence and things like that. And even with memoir, there's like that is a big component of it. It's like you have to always kind of be out there on the socials. And so you want to approach this differently.
Yeah. I would be willing to bet somewhere along the line of when I sold Mama Sauce is probably close to the last time I did anything socially. Cause I was Mama Sauce was like a social, it was built on social. It was earned content strategy. Mm-hmm. It was all cool imagery and that's the thing that I one of the things I did there.
You were living and breathing that entire machine. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm still not back on it. And, maybe I'll find, I actually, I saw a reason for it just recently. That was like, oh my God, a magician was performing every night and in the Halloween show at Lou. And I was like, hey, Terry, I think you know my old roommate, so-and-so. And he's like, I'm so sorry to hear about his passing. Because my old roommate was a magician. And they were in the same guild and did all the magician stuff together. And I was like, he saw, I was stunned. I was like, and the last time I talked to him, I knew he was sick. And I had just talked to him a month before, just about Terry. I was like, oh, we got Terry in the show. And he said that. And I was like, oh my God. And he's like, I'm so sorry that you found. I was like, no, I'm actually, the last thing he had actually texted me is Terry's a great guy and a great magician. It's like about you, And after that moment passed and everything I was thinking about, it's like, I guess that's a reason for social media. Like, we were close enough where I care, but also, his mom wouldn't think to call me.
Yeah.
And I was like, and it's making me rethink my relationship with social media now. Like, all right, I've been really off of it, staying out of everything. I don't want to know nothing about anything, but I do want to know about Travis.
Right. And that might be the only way, as you said, to really, I mean, when we, not to make it about us again, but when we were going through our health stuff, like we posted about it and we were very public about it because they were the kind of challenges that could have meant the end for us at points. So like, we didn't want to leave anybody else out of that if they wanted to get in touch or, you know what I mean? Just, it just felt like the right thing to connect just in case, because we don't know how much time we get. And it's something that we don't dwell on, but it's something that is always kind of there in the back of our minds. And, when we're faced with the kinds of challenges where we really have to think about it a lot and be like, I need to like give my wife these passwords before I go under. It hits you differently. And the way that people connect with you in subsequent days, months, after that. And I think it brings us closer together, kind of knowing what people go through as well. But yeah, to miss an opportunity to say goodbye, or to know what is happening, like we don't want that.
Yeah, there's actually still important things that happen and go through social media channels. That's I learned.
Yeah, when used properly, and that's the thing. I think like especially in an election year, sometimes it's sort of like I need to set more appropriate boundaries because this is like spinning out of control and this isn't actually what I want from this engagement. And there are ways of doing that, of like muting posts and muting people and things like that. And, being cognizant of what you put out there and making sure that it is personal, making people feel closer to you. Of course, like what ideas that we value and, just remember to use social media responsibly.
Yeah, I think
and make it personal.
A responsible use of social media might be actually I'll post this show, this episode. Yeah,
I like it. I like it. That's a good way to do it, and it's a good way to reconnect too. Just get your voice out there. It's funny because somebody was telling me the other day they were listening to an episode and they're like, "Oh, I haven't talked to this person in a while. I'll listen to this later when I can't talk to them. I'm just going to call them because I want to talk to them now." And it just like reminds you of that thing of like, oh yeah, I like really miss this person in my life. And yeah, I think just having voices out there and getting to know people, like it's such a valuable thing. And when we take the time to do it and put the energy in to learn about somebody else and ways that we connect, it's like, yeah, this is somebody that I should know, and I'm really glad that I do now. So thank you, Nick, for taking the time.
Oh, thank you. And on that point, thank you so much for, I really value the way you treat the show to get to know people. It's a reflection of the neighborhood and that spirit we talked about. It's obviously so intentional. It's really, I'm grateful to have been, to be part of it. So thank you so much. I appreciate everything you put into this.
Man, thank you. That means a ton to me. I don't know. It's cool to connect. So.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm grateful to be here. Thank you.
We'll see you around the neighborhood.
Absolutely.
This episode is brought to you in part by the Audubon Park Community Market. Join us every Monday from 5 to 8 p.m., rain or shine, in the parking lot of Stardust Video and Coffee. Located at 1842 East Winter Park Road, this weekly gathering of makers, farmers, gardeners, fishmongers, ranchers, craftsmen, artisans, entrepreneurs, neighbors, and friends brings the very best of Central Florida to you every week. Our theme song is by Christopher Pierce, and special thanks to Trey Hester for all his help in making this podcast a reality. We do hope you enjoyed this episode. If so, please click subscribe and leave a review if you'd like. We'll see you next time.